Now, you'll also hear, I think the second thing you'll hear from the president's team is attack the managers. Those managers are just awful. They're terrible people, especially that Schiff guy. He's the worst. He's the worst. And Exhibit A, he mocked the president. He mocked the president. He mocked the president as if he was shaking down the leader of another country, like he was an organized crime figure. He mocked the president. He said, it was like the president said, listen, Zelensky, because I'm only going to say this 7 times. Well, I discovered something very significant by mocking the president. And that is, for a man who loves to mock others, he does not like to be mocked. So it turns out he's got a pretty thin skin. Who would have thought it? Never mind that I said I wasn't using his words before I said it, and I wasn't using his words after I said it, and I said I was making a parody of his words. It's an outrage. He mocked the president. That Schiff. Terrible. Now, they will attack my other colleagues, too, for things said in the heat of debate here on the floor. So we're reaching the wee hours of the morning. And they'll attack some of my colleagues who aren't even in this chamber. Maybe they'll attack the squad. That's a perennial favorite with the president. If they attack the squad, you should ask, what does that have to do with the price of beans? But you can expect attacks on all kinds of members of the House that have nothing to do with the issues before you. And when you hear those attacks, you should ask yourself, away from what do they want to distract my attention? Because 9 times out of 10, it will be the president's misconduct. But look for it. Attacks on the managers, attacks on other House members, attacks on the Speaker, attacks on who knows what. It's all of the same ilk. Whatever you do, just don't consider the president's misconduct.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.